Hello, 5th graders. Today we're going to go over how to convert between measurements, converting from decimals to fractions, how to divide fractions, and listing the prime factors. So for the first section we're going to go over is converting. It says convert these measurements to the metric units shown, and the metric units shown will be between either ounce, grams, kilograms, or pounds. So you're going to be converting between these 4 different metric units. So on the right side over here, I wrote down the basic conversions of each of these. Remember that these are just rounded values. They're not exact values. So keep that in mind as you do all of these problems. So over here, I wrote down how to convert between ounces and grams, how to convert between kilograms and ounce, and how to convert between pounds and kilograms. These will prove to be useful when you're solving these problems. I'll show you how to do these by showing you number 2 and number 4. So now let's get started with number 2. So for number 2, we're going to be converting between ounces and kilograms. To be specific, we're going to be converting between 48 ounces to kilograms. So now I'm just going to rewrite it over here. Instead, something different when I'm rewriting it is that I'm going to put an X over here to represent the unknown value, and that's the value we're going to find for. So the purpose of this proportion that I'm going to set up is to find the value of X. So to find the value of X, I'm going to be using these conversion factors that I wrote up here. So we're going to be converting to ounces and kilograms. So in order to do that, I'll need the help of this second equation, which is converting from ounces to kilograms. So just keep this measurement in mind. So in order to use that, I'm going to write it in proportions. So I'm going to divide both of them like this, and I'm going to set up my proportions. So 35.274 ounces, go down here underneath the ounces. So make sure that your ounces aligns together and equal to 1 kilogram. So you'll notice that when I'm placing these numbers down, the ounces is on top of each other, the kilograms is on top of each other, and this row is horizontally aligned together like this. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to now do something called cross multiply. So that's when you're going to be multiplying across like this, diagonal like this, that forms an X like this. So it's called cross multiplying. Now have a calculator by your side to do these problems. So for the first this first diagonal over here that I placed over here, we're going to do 48 times 1. So it's cross multiplying, so we're going to multiply them. So 48 times 1, we know that as 48. And now we're going to make it equal to whatever product we get from here. So 35.274 times x, we know that as 35.274x. Now before I set up this proportion, I established that the purpose of this is to find the x value. So we're going to isolate the x value over here by dividing both sides by 35.274. And this is where the calculator comes in, as I mentioned. 48 divided by 35.274. So you should get a continuous number, and you can just round to the hundreds or the thousands, up to you. So x we get as, I'm going to round to thousands, 1.361. So your value for number 2 should be 1.361. So 48 ounces equals to approximately 1.361 kilograms. And so that's basically it. And I'm just going to do the same thing for number 4. 77 pounds equals x kilogram. I'm just going to rewrite it and replace the unknown with the value variable x, which we're going to be looking for. Now, looking at the conversions over here, which one do you need to be able to solve this? So since we're going from pounds to kilograms, we'll need the third equation over here. Let me just circle it in blue over here. So you're going to be needing the third equation. So now I'm just going to rewrite it underneath, just like I did for number 2. So I'm going to put the pounds underneath the pounds, 2.20 pounds, and I'm going to put the kilograms underneath the kilograms, 1 kilogram like this. Now, I'm just going to do cross multiplication like this and like this. So first, this diagonal, what's 77 times 1? Well, that's pretty easy. It's just 77. Now, what's 2.20 times x? That's just 2.20x. Now, Now, oops, sorry, I meant to put x instead of pounds over here. So now you're going to use your calculator to divide 2.20 to both sides, trying to get the x isolated. So 77 divided by 2.20, you should end up with 35. So x equals 35, and you'll just write it over here. So 75 pounds is approximately 35 kilograms. Now, for the second section, we're going to go over is decimals to fraction. And over here, I wrote down the directions to convert from decimal to fraction. You'll understand what this means soon enough when I do these problems with you. We're going to do number 2 and number 4 together. So 0.42, I'm just going to write the decimal over here as it says over here. And I'm just going to put it over 1 because that's basically the same thing. Now, the multiplication sign over here is to get 0.42 into a whole number. So what power of 10 do you have to multiply to 0.42 to get it into a whole number? Well, the answer is obvious. You just have to multiply by 100. But if you're going to do it to the numerator, you also have to do it to the denominator. Now, your new numerator should be 42, which is a whole number, and the denominator should be 100. And the last thing that I make sure to put over here is simplify. You have to simplify your fractions. So to simplify this, I'm going to divide the numerator and the denominator by 2. You should end up with 21 over 50, which cannot be simplified any further, and which should be your answer. That was pretty easy, and now we're going to go over 0.5. And I'm going to put it over 1 again. Now, what power of 10 to get 0.5 into a whole number? Well, 10 multiplying by 10 will make it into a whole number. So now your new numerator will be 5, and your new denominator will be 10. So now, just to simplify this, make sure to always check if it's simplified whenever you're dealing with fractions. So you'll end up with 1 over 2 as your final simplified answer. Cannot get any more simplified than this. Now your third section we're going to go over is how to divide fractions. So we're going to divide fractions. We're going to go over number 3 and number 5 together. So for number 3, we're given 7 over 10 divided by 9 over 1. 9 over 1 is basically the same thing as 9. So now if you look over here, I wrote that when you divide by 6 over C over D, it's the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal of C over D. And the reciprocal of C over D is, when the numerator and the denominator switch, as you can tell over here. So when you're dividing by 6 over D, and C over D is the same thing as multiplying by D over C. So we're basically going to do the same over here. So divided by 9 over 10 is the same thing as multiplying by 1 over 9. As you can tell, the numerator and the denominator switched. So now from here, you just have to multiply across. Dividing fractions is pretty easy. So we get 7 over 90. Make sure it's simplified all the way, and this is simplified all the way. Now we're going to do 2 over 5 divided by 7 over 1. The reason why I put it over 1 is for you to be able to visualize the reciprocal. So this is the same thing as 2 over 5 times 1 over 7. Simple enough, and we're just going to multiply across. 2 times 1 is 2, 5 times 7 is 35, and this is simplified all the way, so your answer should be 2 over 35. Now your last section we're going to go over is prime factors. We're going to list the prime numbers for each number, and we're going to determine if the number is prime. So in the last lesson, we went over prime factor trees, and that's what we're going to incorporate into this section. So we're going to do 76, and we're going to build a prime factor tree for this. So 76, what prime number goes into 76? Well, the first thing that I think of is 2. 76, 2 goes into 76, and it goes in there 38 times. So 2 times 38 should equal 76. Now, since 2 is a prime number, I'm just going to circle it. 38 is not a prime number, so we have to grow another tree, another root. So now, what prime number goes into 38? Well, I could also think of 2 again, because 38 is an even number. And 2 times 19 is what equals to 38, so that should be a prime tree. And we know that 2 is a prime number. Now we have to determine if 19 is a prime number. And 19 is a prime number. It cannot be divided any further besides 1. So for number 2, your prime number should be 2 times 2 times 19. So the ones that I circled in red are the prime numbers in the factor tree. And that's going to be the prime numbers for 76. And now we have to determine is the number prime. And 76 is not a prime number. So I'm going to write no. If it was a prime number, its prime numbers would only consist of 1 and the number itself, but that's not the case for this one, so it's going to be no. And that's it for today.